Welcome to my channel. Today I am looking at masking fluid and how that can aid us in our alcohol ink paintings. I'll be using two substrates. One here is a 4x4 tile and the other is a piece of Yupo. The other tools that I'm going to need today are obviously the masking fluid, the isopropyl in a little squirty bottle ready to go, and some cotton buds, some dish soap, a brush, and also a palette knife. And I'll explain what the dish soap is for a little bit later on. I've also chosen three colors by Ranger brand: pistachio, turquoise, and raspberry. So to start with, we're going to use the cotton bud to apply our masking fluid. So if I can get the lid open there we go. Okay, and using the cotton bud, I just dip it right into the masking fluid and apply that to my tile and my Yupo. So next I'm going to use a brush, and this is where your dish soap comes in handy. It's a good idea just to dip your brush into the dish soap. It helps to protect it from the masking fluid. If you dipped your brush directly into the masking fluid, it tends to be more difficult to clean and get off completely, but the dish soap will help us with that. So you can use the brush just in the same way as a cotton bud. You can obviously fill in bigger gaps depending on the size of brush that you use, or you could get in a little bit more detail if you used a smaller one as well. So there's definitely a purpose for the brush versus the cotton bud. And then the next thing I'm going to use is the palette knife, and I can just show you with this, once we peel it off, how much more irregular the white patterns are. So this is kind of nice if you're doing something a little bit more abstract, or you want to keep it a little bit more organic, where that white bit shows through. So I let that masking fluid dry for a few minutes. I paused the video, and now I'm going to add in my pistachio color, and I add the alcohol first. Otherwise, when you first put the ink down on Yupo paper, you get a blob, like a circle staining, where the ink first attaches to the Yupo. So to help to avoid that, I add the alcohol first. Sometimes I just add a small blob just to get that ink moving first. And I'm adding some more ink and some more alcohol, just kind of mixing it up. And then I'm going to bring in the turquoise color, add that in, let that blend and mix in with that pistachio color as well, adding more alcohol just to really get that ink moving. And now I'm going to add in the raspberry, the third and final color. Just keeping it simple today, just using the three colors, and it's really nice combination of tones that we seem to get. Because I've already got the ink on the paper, I didn't worry about putting the alcohol down first. I just put the ink directly on there. So you tend not to get too much staining when you already have ink on the paper. So just letting that move around, playing around with adding different colors in, and a little bit of alcohol, letting those colors really mix and create their own versions on the Yupo. So, of course, we need to treat this tile exactly the same way as much as we can with these inks. They have a life of their own, that's for sure, so we're never going to get it exactly the same, but I'm at least using the same colors and adding alcohol in the same way. So let's get the tile covered nicely. So this is the fun bit. Do you remember in school, I don't know if you guys did this, but I sure did, you would get your PVA glue and you put it all over your hand just so you could let it dry and peel it off. Well, that's what this reminds me of. When you get to peel off that masking fluid, it's the most satisfying feeling in the world. or at least I think so. So we're going to peel off all that masking fluid that we put down. You do have to kind of tilt the paper to see where it is. Sometimes it does hide, the ink does kind of stain right over that masking fluid as well. But usually once you grab an edge, you can kind of peel all of it away. Okay, so I've just zoomed in a little bit there so you can see, and slowed it down because I didn't have very much recording in this bit. And you can see how we've got some nice kind of hardish edges around the circles, and then when we use the palette knife it's just a little bit more organic, but still this masking fluid creates quite a hard edge. So it's nice to kind of go back in with some alcohol and see if we can soften it. It's hard to get rid of it completely, but that's kind of the point of the masking fluid, to really keep those white areas white for us. And so I'm just showing you here how adding that alcohol will just dilute everything around it, but you can still see that there is the white showing. So I'm just trying to soften that edge just a little bit with a cotton bud as well, just to show you that variation. So let's keep on going with this. I want to show you the effects of adding masking fluid right on top of the ink as well. So I'm just dabbing on a few dots here and there, and I'm also going to do some splatter technique, where I'm literally just throwing the masking fluid at the paper and the tile. It's quite satisfying actually, but you just get a little bit more organic, and you get these smaller dots that appear as well when you do the splatter technique. And I'm also just going to add some dots purposefully on the left hand side of each the tile and the Yupo paper. Then we can really decipher. So we know that especially on that Yupo paper it's really intense purple, and I want to show you what comes off with the masking fluid. Then once that is dry, I'm adding more alcohol and more ink, and using the same colors but just going right over the top, trying to get some really cool effects. I'm not worrying about where my other white spaces are now. I'm just trying to show you that you can kind of build up these layers. Okay, so the next step is to remove the masking fluid like we did before, and I'm using a cotton bud this time only because I am impatient and that ink is still a little bit wet, and if I use my finger it just means that I'm going to smudge that ink right over my white spot that I've just created, and I want to try and avoid that. When I use the cotton bud, the ink is absorbed into the cotton bud, so it's less likely to smudge onto your white spot. So it's just all about being impatient really. If you wanted to, you could just dry and then you're guaranteed not to smudge your ink into your white spot. So whatever, if you're like me, then this is another way to do it. So I've removed all that masking fluid now and just zoomed in so you can see the dots there on the left hand side, how it's actually removed some of the ink from underneath. It's left just a little bit of a stain, and the same on the tile. The dots are actually at the top of the tile. I forgot to turn it, but you can see how that might be a benefit if you wanted to remove some of that ink as well. You can do that through the masking fluid, which is kind of cool. So give me a thumbs up if you liked what you saw today, and also click subscribe, and I'll see you on my next video.